Hey everyone, it's Gary from Soccer Pro and Soccer Labs. Soccer Pros are soccer coaching software that you get to use for free to make smarter players win more games. It has the coaching video, it has the scheduling system built just for soccer players, not for every sport. The player evaluation system, player performance system, the learning center, the session planner, and a whole bunch of other stuff that makes your life a lot easier if you are running a soccer team, soccer club, or if you're just a player that wants to create a players page for soccer college recruiting, or a parent that just wants to share videos for fun. It's all there. It's all free. Just go ahead and grab an account. Today, I have the good fortune of having Jenna with me from Ripple Effect Performance. And Jenna is running a company that specializes in the mental side of I was going to say soccer, but of sports in general, for athletes, coaches, parents, so that you can not only improve the physical side, you can improve the mental side, and also the interaction with the athlete that you're trying to care for and watch and have fun participating in their sports. So, Jenna, why don't you go ahead and just explain a little bit about what you do, who you are, and how you got into the mental side of it? Most people are going after the physical side.
Hmm.
So it's kind of interesting that you went the other way after the mental side.
Ooh, that's a really great question, Gary. So, yeah, hi, everyone. My name's Jenna Weinstein, but you can just call me Jenna. And my company is called Ripple Effect Performance, where I specialize in coaching athletes, coaches, parents, anybody involved in the athletic process in how they can up their mental game. And you're right, that is a really specific area to be involved with because when it comes to sports or athletics, people tend to be involved more on the physical side. So I actually had a very interesting road that brought me to this particular place. So I was always an athlete growing up. I played soccer for about 10 years, went to college with the intent to play soccer in college. And I ended up not pursuing college soccer. I changed my mind and started playing rugby in
Okay.
college. And I ended up playing rugby for the next 10 years of my life.
Wow.
And I loved it. And it was when I was in college, I went to college with the intent to study psychology. I was always very interested in the field of psychology, how the mind worked, and just being able to better understand how people think and why people do things. And I knew I didn't want to be a counselor per se. I didn't want to go into the typical life of psychology of like examining people. And I was always very involved and loved sports. And I wondered if I can combine the two fields. Can I combine my love of sports and competition along with my big interest in psychology and how the mind works? And sure enough, there is a field within psychology called sport and performance psychology or sport and exercise psychology. And so that made it a very easy decision for me. Take the two things I really enjoy doing and blend the two. So after college, I went to grad school in Massachusetts at Springfield College, and I specifically studied sport and exercise psychology. And I was actually more interested in the psychology of injury because as a high school athlete playing soccer, I experienced a very devastating injury where I shattered my ankle and I
Mm.
was out of the game for the rest of the season and it took me the whole year to come back and be able to play again. And then when I was playing rugby, I'd had some pretty significant injuries. I mean, I suffered from concussions and I dislocated both my elbows at one point. Uh, so, yeah. So I was not a stranger to being injured, but I always had that mentality of, all right, an injury is just temporary. How can I want to get back and I want to play. And throughout my athletic experience, my athletic career, I've found there were some people who had a similar mindset to me who, when they experienced an injury or a setback, they couldn't wait to get stronger again and get back to their sport. And then there were other athletes who would experience an injury and it would make the decision very easy for them to stop playing or
Ah,
they were too nervous
right.
after an injury to come back 100% to their sport. So I really just wanted to understand what the impact that an injury could have on a person in terms of restarting or ending their career, and then what the power of sport could be in helping a person recover from a significant injury. So I worked a lot with adaptive sport athletes too. So spinal cord injury patients, athletes with amputations or cerebral palsy, and a lot of them use sport as a coping mechanism to reclaim their identity and reclaim the control that they had in their lives after a very traumatic injury or experience.
Soccer players are certainly no strangers to injury, and I
Sure.
know that you cover a lot of sports. I tend to focus on soccer just because
Mm-hmm.
that's where I'm at. So
Yeah.
some of these things will be for soccer. Now, keep in mind, of course, that all these things are common. I mean, injuries happen right
Mm-hmm.
across all sports. So I want to get into the, let's call it the positive side of soccer. How do we score more? How do we play better? How do we win more games? I mean, that's really what everyone wants to do in the end. But injuries, they're part of the game. So if we just take a couple minutes here, what is one of the
Mm-hmm.
best ways for an injured player to get back into the game, to get back on the horse, so to speak?
Yeah. So on the physical side, do what your doctor recommends that you do. So I think a big hurdle for athletes is sometimes they don't want to listen to doctors. And I was no different when I was hurt. I wanted to push myself harder than I should have. And as much as that's admirable, sometimes the experts really do know more
Right.
than the athlete. And you have to be willing to slow down for a significant amount of time and take your time letting. And I think knowing that that's part of the process, that you have to be willing to let yourself slow down and
Mm-hmm.
take a step back, that can be mentally difficult for a lot of people and a lot of athletes, because you're so used to being capable of doing anything you want. You're so used to not feeling like you have any limits and feeling powerful and invincible. And now you have an injury that's telling you you have to slow down, you have to take it easy, you have to be careful. It's a 180 from what you're used to. So I would tell athletes, if you do experience an injury, or when you do experience an injury, because if you play sports for long enough, it's not a question of if you'll get injured, but more so
Yep.
when it ever should happen that you become injured, like, be okay with the fact that your body needs time to recover. And the way to that you're going to help your body do that is by acknowledging that the process is going to take a while, and that the process is temporary, that an injury, depending on the injury, um, is temporary. And I think a really common injury that you see in soccer or football, whichever part of the world is watching this, um, ACLs are a really common injury. ACL tears, ACL ruptures are a very common injury in
Yep.
soccer. I think we see that. And those can take anywhere from like 6 months to a year to recover from. And just acknowledging that the process is going to take some time and accept that is a huge milestone for some athletes to take and to meet. And while you're recovering, I think it's important that athletes set some goals while they're recovering from their injury. Like, what are some milestones that you can work out with your physical therapist
Mm-hmm.
that you're going to try to hit?
Yep.
And that's your job now. Your job as an athlete is to recover from your injury so that you can get back out on the
Right.
field with the rest of your teammates. So what are the new goals that you want to set for yourself? What are the new milestones you want to set for yourself? And let's say it is a permanent injury. Let's say you have an injury that's now gonna, like, it's not going to go away. You could still set goals for yourself. That should not be a reason to stop doing things. You just might have to adapt and change the way you do
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm-hmm.
But you should never let an injury define you, or at least that's my stance. And an injury is not your definition. It might be part of your reality, but it's not who you
Right.
are. You're still you.
Well, let's move on to the
Mm-hmm.
well, let's call it the more fun side of things. I mean,
Sure.
injuries are a part of life, but
Mm-hmm.
hopefully it doesn't happen too often. One thing
Right.
that does happen all the time, though, is these games, they come down to crunch time, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden we're into PKs, right? And
Yeah.
now that big crowd of people that were in the stands cheering all game now become that adversary in your head, because you're one of five people standing up on the line. You've got to walk up to that ball. You've got to try to kick it into the goal. And whether you make that ball or don't make that ball into the back of the net, well, that's the difference between either going on to the next stage of regionals, conference, state, whatever it might be, or going home. So that all
Yeah.
of a sudden becomes a big pressure cooker. So, what are some techniques that players can use to put more of those balls into the back of the net?
Yeah. I think For any athlete, but especially for soccer players when it comes to penalty kicks, I think I'd want to know, what are you thinking about when you're selected to be the one of the penalty kickers? What are your thoughts? Are you raising your hand wanting that opportunity, or are you hiding in the back of the pack hoping the coach doesn't pick you for that
Mm-hmm.
opportunity? And I think if your initial thoughts are, I never want to get picked to do a penalty kick, let's work on that. Like let's change that way of thinking. Let's change that mindset, because like that should be an opportunity that everybody on the team is fighting for. Everybody on the team wants that challenge, whether or not like they're the best shooter on the team or not. Everybody is confident enough to say, I want that challenge. I want to feel that pressure because I know I can handle it. Versus, I don't want everybody on the team to run away from those
Right.
opportunities. That's where you grow. When you face challenges like that, that's when you get better as an athlete. That's when you get better as a person. So I think the first step is really figuring out, which person are you? Are you the person that raises their hand wanting to kick? Or are you the person that hides in the pack hoping that the coach doesn't pick you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you're the person hiding hoping that the coach doesn't pick you, what are the types of thoughts that you're thinking? Are you saying to yourself, hey, the coach better not pick me because I can't shoot, I can't kick, like I'm the worst at it. Like I'm gonna lose us the game if the coach picks me. And if those are some of the thoughts that you're having, those don't have to be the thoughts that you're having. What's so great about what I do for work and what I get to help athletes do is I get to help them take control over what they do and what they don't do. If you're automatically thinking, I'm never going to be the type of player who can do this, well, we can change that. We can change that way of thinking, and we could change the way you see yourself as a player, as an athlete, so that you do see yourself as a player who can take penalty kicks. You will see yourself as a player who can take breakaway shots or who can take corner
Mm-hmm.
kicks. And a lot of that stems with confidence. And teaching confidence it's not easy, but it's such a powerful tool, especially with youth athletes. If I can give a youth athlete more confidence to step out on the field and try something new, that's a win. Even if they don't win the game, you tried something new that you were never willing to try before this game. That's a win for you.
Right.
And that's where I might differ compared to other coaches is, yes, I love winning just as much as the next person. I'm a super competitive person. And I'm also willing to acknowledge, maybe Billy didn't win in this game. Maybe he missed some shots, but how many more shots was Billy willing to take this game? Normally he only takes 5 shots on goal. Today he was willing to take 15. That's a huge
Right.
improvement. The fact that he became more daring. So when it comes coming back to the penalty kick side of things, how can we get athletes more willing and more comfortable taking a penalty kick? One is changing their mindset to be willing to volunteer for those
Mm-hmm.
opportunities. Let's make you more confident to just step into the limelight a little bit. And then second, what's your train of thought when you're on the field? When you're lining up your penalty shot, what's your routine? What do? What's step one? What's step two? How do you position the ball in front of the net? How do you line up for the ball? Do you like pick some grass out of the field and like sprinkle it to see like what the wind is doing? Do you like do a couple of like arm stretches and or like a couple of jumps before you kick? What's your routine? And then let's hammer out a routine that's going to work best for you. And then let's rehearse that routine over and over again, not just physically, but now the mental rehearsal piece. So I think where I like to work in conjunction with the actual coaches is they're in charge of the technical piece and the mechanical piece. You teach your athletes all the skills, all the drills, all the strategies. That's your
Mm-hmm.
forte. Even though I was a soccer player, I'm not there to coach them in how to be soccer players. I'm there to coach them on how to be mental
So
athletes.
you're saying more of a
Mental.
like a mental routine and a physical routine,
Mhm.
right? Where they're
Yeah.
thinking, they've got to be thinking something as they're standing on the line. They have to be thinking something
Hmm.
as they run up to the spot where they're going to kick the ball from. They have to be thinking something as they're waiting for the ref to blow that whistle, through the whole process. So, and,
Hmm.
and these are things, again, I guess I'm paraphrasing what you're saying, but it sounds like what you're saying is they need to do these things in practice repeatedly and to make them as close to the game scenario as possible so that not only are they getting that kick, the final kick, but they have to have that whole lead up to it. So instead of just taking a bunch of kids and having them kick the ball from the spot, have them go through the whole process, have them start back where they're going to be separated out in the game, have them run up to the ball, have them actually, go through the process of being the referee and blowing the whistle, have them go through their routine from start to finish so they can get that mental side of what it's going to feel like when they run from their 5-player lineup to the spot and then take that kick.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I think, so there's that old adage of practice makes perfect. And I want to just turn that on its head and impose this new train of thought where it's not about being perfect. It's about practice makes permanent. How can we practice something so much that we know exactly what we need to do and it's automatic? And we've practiced it so many times that I don't even have to think anymore about how I'm going to line up a penalty kick. It's so automatic, and I've done it so many times in practice that I know my body knows exactly what to do. But the only way your body's going to know exactly what to do is if you replicate exactly what you want it to do in a practice type scenario.
Right.
And I know that practice, like physical practice, is a commodity. It's not, or it's a luxury for some people. It's not always going to be something that you can always get. You're not always going to be able to practice for 3 hours every day. Not every athlete's going to have that opportunity. So where the mental aspect of practice comes in is if you have a routine locked down and you've practiced it physically, but now let's say your practice before the big game gets rained out. That's one less opportunity you have to practice to solidify those skills and drills that you want to before the game. And you want to practice your penalty kick, but now you can't actually physically practice. You can mentally practice it. You can do what we call mental rehearsal. And actually visualize yourself going through your penalty kick process, and not just seeing yourself doing it, but visualizing the crowd in the stands and hearing them cheering. Maybe some people are booing. You can visualize your teammates on the sideline and how they're set up. You can visualize the ref like standing next to you, and then you can visualize like the sound of the whistle. You can visualize the smell of the grass or the turf on the field. You can visualize the feeling of the wind blowing across you or the sweat dripping down your head. You just want to evoke as many of your senses as possible, because the more real it feels, the more your brain believes that it's actually happening. And your brain can't decipher vivid imagery from an actual physical practice. It feels the same to your brain.
Yeah.
So the more visualization and mental rehearsal that you can do, the more mental reps you're going to get, and those muscles in your bodies are going to get that training adaptation too.
Right.
So I wholeheartedly encourage athletes to do mental rehearsal, especially for very specific things like a penalty kick or a corner kick or even like a kickoff type scenario. Those are very specific times in the game where a mental rehearsal technique or routine is going to bolster your performance 100%.
Mm-hmm. There was a study. I used to do motorcycle road racing, and on the track. And what they found was they would take these people, top racers, and they would actually have them talk their way through the track. Okay, describe where are you accelerating, at what point are you braking. So the racer would describe, I'm going to, my brake point is here. I'm going to tip it in here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get back on the gas at this point. And the really good racers would actually describe their lap time, okay, almost to the second of their actual ride time. So in their mind, they knew exactly what they were going to do at every single point on that track, even though they weren't physically doing it. And, so I think that comes back. The reason I get into that is I think that comes back to the whole PK scenario that you're describing, that, you want to go through the whole process. You don't want to just do the kick, because otherwise you're short-circuiting that entire mental side of it of, sure, the kick is the same. You're kicking from the same spot into the same net, but you're not doing all that other mental preparation of the approach, the view, the lineup, the waiting for the
Mm-hmm.
whistle, and then the whole thing. So anyhow,
Yeah.
I think that's a little
Yeah, no,
that
you're absolutely
I think that's
right.
a little counterintuitive to what most people are doing. Most people are just practicing the kicking part of it, the physical side of it.
And that's so important because you're not going to make a penalty kick unless you practice actually kicking the ball.
Hmm.
You need to have the skill set in order to execute. And once you develop this skill set, now you can be more deliberate with how you practice that skill
Right,
set.
right.
You don't just need the rote physical practice, but you also need to be able to visualize the crowd because like you were saying, sometimes the crowd can be they can be with you or they can be against
Yep.
you. And like I remember from my own experience, the first half of a soccer match, the crowd is always good. Even if they're not cheering for you, you love playing with the crowd and the noise feels good to an extent. And then if you get to a situation like a PK, now the crowd just seems 10 times bigger. Everybody's eyes are on you. And it just, that pressure buildup is so
Hmm.
significant compared to the beginning of the match or the beginning of the game. So, how do you interpret that pressure in a more effective and positive way?
Hmm. Hmm.
How can you look at the crowd and internalize it and say, I like this situation. I want to be out here and I'm going to do the best that I can. And I know I'm going to do as well as they can because I've practiced every possible way.
And
Versus,
if you make it a
yeah,
habit in practice, it becomes just less of an unusual scenario when you're in the game because you've got the run,
exactly.
you've got the approach, you've got all those things. So, and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of leads me into the second thing that you see a lot of kids do when they get a fast break. It's just them and the
Mm-hmm.
goalie, and it should be just a chip in. It should be an easy shot, because they've got all the advantages at this point. And
Yeah.
instead, they kick the ball right to the goalie. It's not like the goalie made a spectacular save. It's not like the goalie came charging out and stuffed the shot. The goalie was just waiting, and they kick it right to the goalie, and they get this target fixation because they're staring at that goalie, thinking to themselves like, "Don't kick it to the goalie! Don't kick it to the goalie!" And instead, they
Mm-hmm.
kick it to the goalie. So
Right.
how can these kids stop approaching that goal and kicking it right to the goalie and actually putting it into the different spots where the goalie
Yeah.
isn't?
Yeah. So a fun little game we could play real quick, Gary, is if I tell you not to think of purple elephants in pink pajamas,
Hmm.
what do you think of in that moment?
Purple elephants in pink pajamas.
But I told you
I
not
know.
to. But you
Well,
did it
that's the vision
anyway.
that comes up. Your mind plays that
Right.
process.
So right. And so that's just a very basic way of helping people understand your brain in those moments doesn't hear the word don't. It just hears what you're telling it not to pay attention to.
Hmm.
So when you gave your brain a target, whether you wanted it to think about it or not, it's focusing on that target. So if you're thinking, don't kick it to the goalie, don't kick it to the keeper, all your brain is going to be fixated on is the goalie, the keeper. It's just going to focus on that. And that's all your body's now going to see. And that's what you're going to kick it to. And that's the story of my high school soccer career.
Right.
I was not known for my accuracy. I either kicked it directly to the goalie or too far over to the sides. And that's when I don't want to say demoted, but I got promoted to sweeper.
Yeah, promoted.
But I couldn't figure out how to be more accurate in my shooting and score a goal. And if I had known then what I know now about assigning a target and knowing how I want to what I want to think about when I'm in a shooting situation, I would have been a much better kicker, I believe. So when athletes are in those one-on-one situations and they got to break away and they're like, okay, I'm ready to shoot. Don't kick it to the goalie. That's the last thing you were
Right.
thinking is the goalie. And all your body was probably your mind was paying attention to was the goalie. And so your body is probably positioned in a way to kick towards the goalie. So I think something really simple is just practicing those types of situations, but letting the coaches help the athletes assign a different target. Where's a different place you want to kick to? Rather than not kicking to the goalie, where do you want to kick
Right.
to? Like, do you want to kick top left? Do you want to kick bottom right? Like, just a very simple cue but that's assigning a more productive cue. Not kicking it to the goalie doesn't help me figure out how to score a goal.
Right. And it simplifies it too because they know where they're always going to
Mm-hmm.
kick it. They don't have to
Yeah,
look at where the goalie is. Is the goalie moving left, right, jumping up and down? It's just
right,
look, if I'm on this side, I'm going to kick it there. If I'm on this side, I'm going to kick it there. And then they don't have to think
right.
and they just are more reactive the same way they don't think about dribbling a ball. You don't think,
Mm-hmm.
okay, move forward, touch the ball, move forward, touch the ball. If you're thinking, you're
Yeah,
not going to be a very good dribbler. And the same way, if you're
right.
shooting without thinking, you're more reactive, more of a reflex, you'll be a better shooter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So, and that's where the power of practice comes in terms of let's replicate as many of these game situations that we can so that when they pop up in the game, it's not the first time we've been presented with this. And if you have a breakaway and you're in a position to score, rather than thinking, don't kick it to the goalie, kick it left, kick right, kick top, kick bottom, like whatever terminology the coaches want to utilize in practice,
Yep.
that'll help, like you said, simplify the process to the athletes. Because in a game situation, you want to keep it simple because there is no time to really
Right.
think.
You need specificity too. You can't
Mm-hmm.
you can't be
Yeah,
like kick it where the if the goalie's here, do this. If the goalie's there, do that. I mean, that's too much thought process. So that's
right.
why, a lot of times, again, don't think. Right. That goes against the grain of a lot of philosophy of what coaches are teaching. They say, look, we want the kids to make decisions. We want them to think, but yeah, we want them to think about lower level. I mean, high level things, not thinking about low level things. We don't want them thinking about dribbling. We don't want them thinking about passing. We don't want them thinking about shooting. If we can get them to just shoot at the same target every time, they'll be
Mm-hmm.
better at it. And they can use that higher level thinking for, scanning the field, for shoulder checking, for looking for defenders, for looking through passes or whatever it might be. But when it comes to the actual mechanics, we can't have them thinking. It just has to be kaboom.
Yeah. And I think the best way to help athletes focus more on that strategic level thinking and figuring out, like, do I want to cross it now? Do I want to switch fields?
Hmm.
Do I want to kick it? Like, what type of play do we want to put into play right now? Is you have to make the fundamental stuff
Right.
automatic.
Yep.
And the way to make those simple things automatic is you got to train it
Hmm.
more. And you got to ingrain the process so much that it's now muscle memory. And people will say, oh, it's muscle memory, so I don't have to think about it. Well, technically, you still are thinking about it. Your body's not going to be able to produce any type of physical action without having a
Right.
thought. But the thought process has just become so ingrained and so automatic in you that it doesn't feel like you're thinking about it. It's probably taking place over the course of half a second versus 5 seconds when you were first learning the skill. But now it's just so automatic and permanent in your brain that it's taking a fraction of the time for you to
Hmm.
process
Hmm.
and think about it. So again, I come back to this idea of practice makes permanent, not perfect. Like, you're not going to get perfection. And sometimes perfection isn't the best that you can do. Why strive for perfection when you can do your
Right.
best? Like, and one person's perfect might be another person's mediocre. Like,
Well, those are two pretty key things. Getting the PKs in, getting the fast breaks in. Shooting is
yeah.
always key. When we talk about soccer pro video, and doing the video analysis, oftentimes we'll
Mm-hmm.
get people to say like, "Oh, I don't like to do it. My kid doesn't like it. The kids just, they get mad if I bring it up." And I always try to emphasize the fact that, look, you can't just beat them over the head with it. You've got to use part of it to encourage the good behavior and say, look, you did something really good, and then you'll get more
Mm-hmm.
of that. When they start getting recognition for doing something good, like, good defense or, pressing high or whatever it is. I don't know what it's going to be, but if you can
Yeah.
pick out those things and give them that positive vision, that positive attitude of, when you do this, you get positive recognition, and then of course correct the negative. There's no one's perfect, so there are things that you have to correct. But you've got to work the positive, you've got to work the negative. So now I'm going to flip it around a little bit, and when you're coming into a
Sure.
game, for me, I was always, or still am, it, even now when I get into a simple, I'll go run a race, even though there's nothing on the line before the race. It's like that butterfly that nervousness. So
Yeah.
what's a mental technique? I mean, if you could give kids one thing to do, one simple drill, one thing that they could practice, that before a game they could be thinking about this or doing something that before the game it relaxes their butterfly, their nervousness.
Hmm. Yeah. So for for me, I don't think nervousness is bad. I think I think society, or like when you start playing sports, whenever you start feeling nervous, it's never a comfortable feeling. So you associate nervousness as
Hmm.
bad. And I'm probably nervous because I'm not ready for some reason. But it's actually the exact opposite. So when our bodies experience that tension or that or that nervous energy, like that butterfly effect in our bellies, or like some sweaty palms, or running to the bathroom 10 times before a game, we tend to internalize that in our minds and think, oh no, this is all happening because like something's going wrong,
Hmm.
like, and I'm so nervous. But in fact, that's just your body's natural way of preparing for competition. That's the fight or flight response just kicking in to let you know, okay, something important is about to go
Okay.
down that you care
Sure.
about. And your body's basically telling you, I'm ready. Like I've made sure everything is dialed in. So I made sure we went to the bathroom enough times so you don't have to worry about going to the bathroom during the game. I made sure that like I shut off the digestive system so you don't have to worry about being hungry during the game. And that's what the butterflies actually is. That's your digestive system, like
Okay.
disengaging. So your body doesn't feel hungry
Okay.
during a game. And so your body doesn't waste energy digesting food or anything while you're playing. So all your energy can be given to your major muscle
Hmm.
groups. So I'd rather coaches and parents and athletes interpret those nervous feelings as, oh, nerves are good. Nerves mean you're ready.
Okay.
This is your body telling you, like, we can do this. We
Right.
can do this. Let's go to battle. Let's fight. Like, let's get it going. So whenever, I mean, I don't compete in sports too much anymore, but on the rare occasion that I do, I'll still get those little butterflies every now and again. And now that I know what I know, I say like, oh, I got the nervous energy. This is good energy. I love
Okay.
it. I embrace it now. And I tell myself my body is telling me that it's ready. And rather than my body is telling me we need to run away. Like, no, my body's ready to tackle whatever it is, whatever challenge is being put
Yeah, that's
before me.
interesting. That- That's an
Yeah, it's
uncommon way of
different.
looking at it.
Hmm. But that's the truth, though. That's what's really happening at like a physiological level. And like, I mean, that fight or flight response is there to either give us the energy we need to combat the challenge, to fight it, or to run away. But for soccer specifically, you're there because you want to
Right.
play. You don't want to run away from a soccer game. You want to
Hmm.
play. So your body's telling you, like, hey, we're here to play. I'm ready to play
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah. Yeah.
play.
So
Mm-hmm.
obviously, the fact that we have this conversation over technology and what you're doing is a lot of
Mm-hmm.
the mental.
Yeah.
There's going to be people that watch this from all different parts of the country, right? So,
Yeah.
or hopefully the world, maybe. But
Yeah.
so, how can you remotely or in person, but let's say remotely,
Yeah.
help either a player or the parents or the coaches or teams? I mean, how is it that someone can get a hold of you and then work with you to up their game for whatever
Yeah.
sport they happen to be in, whether it's soccer or some other sport no one cares about?
Love it. I live in Savannah, Georgia right now. I do work with athletes and teams locally within like the Savannah, South Carolina, even like maybe Florida
Hmm.
region. It's very easy for me to do in-person work with anybody in this region. And I've worked one-on-one with athletes. I've also done team workshops, seminars, uh, I've traveled to them. Like they come to me, so that's very easy. But the remote work, just like we're doing now, we're doing a video call. This is all I need to talk with an athlete or work with a coach or talk with a parent. So if you've got a phone or if you have email, we can definitely talk through any of those mediums. I do prefer at least a phone call because I like to be able to hear the person. I think a video call can be even
Hmm.
better because then they get to put a face to my name, and it doesn't feel as, it just feels a little bit more like personal
Right.
that way, and I can get to know them a lot better. And and I would even ask if they have like game footage of themselves playing, if I could see it, just to get a better understanding of what they're talking about that they want help with. So if I'm working with a soccer player who's in your area, in like the Chicago area, and they say, I really want help with like my defense. I'm just not very good at putting
Right.
pressure at putting pressure on other players, and I tend to back away and give the ball up too easily. And I can visualize to an extent what that looks
Right.
like, but it could help me so much more if they have any type of game footage. And it seems like your company does just that. That it makes it easy for
Well, you're
athletes to.
preaching to the choir when it comes to video. I mean,
Yeah.
video. Look, video isn't a magic pill, but
Mm-hmm.
it's an advanced communication tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
The same way you can talk to people, that's one communication tool. You can use a whiteboard, that's another. You can take your little coach's
Right.
board, that's another. They're all just
Yeah.
communication tools. And video just happens to work extremely well because people don't believe it till they see it. No, no, that I wasn't doing that. But then they see it
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, there it is. So
Yeah.
I got off on a
Yeah. I
little bit
would
of a
love.
tangent there, but
No, I think you're right, because I do think the video can be is such an asset and resource for athletes and coaches and parents to utilize to just up their game physically, but also mentally. So what you were mentioning before, like the parents or the coaches, if they do almost like a debrief of a game and they're watching the video footage with their athletes, like, can you point out what the athlete did
hmm
well? And I would encourage parents and coaches to go a step further and not just point out the outcome. Like, hey, you see how you made that shot? That's awesome. That's great. We want to see more of that. How is the athlete supposed to replicate that? So I think coaches and parents can get a little bit more specific, like we were saying before, when they're praising an athlete. Because I think when an athlete makes a mistake, it's really easy for us to say, hey, no, you were maneuvering, so like the way you were maneuvering was this way. This is what you need to do to
yep.
fix it. It's very easy for us to give a process to correct something, but when an athlete or a performer does something really well, we typically tend to focus on the
hmm
outcomes and say, hey, you had a really great pass across the field in the 57th minute. Do that again
Yeah.
from now on. Okay. But if the athlete doesn't know how they did it, can you help them figure out what they did to
Right.
lead up to that good pass? Can you help them figure out what they did well to lead to that good
Yeah.
throw in or that good.
Step it back a few.
What's the process? So something I really encourage parents and coaches to add to their arsenal is something I call process focused praise. So rather than just focusing on the outcome, hey, we won today and it's all because like you scored. Like that's great. Those are great
Right.
outcomes, but the outcomes wouldn't be possible without the right
Yep.
processes. So let's figure out what the process was that led to that great outcome, and let's focus on replicating those processes in
hmm
practice.
hmm
And then what that teaches an athlete is outcomes are good. Good outcomes are good. But the only way you get a good outcome is by having a really good foundation and a
Right.
good process.
Yeah, it makes perfect
So a good
sense.
outcome isn't just yeah, a good outcome isn't just going to be given to you. You're not just going to be given a trophy. I mean, you might depending on the league you're
You're
playing
right.
in, but
Yeah.
you're not just going to win because you want to. The only way you're going to win is by doing all the little things right.
Yep.
And the way you figure out how to do the little things right is by breaking it down, by using like resources like the videotapes, or by working with your coaches to practice your fundamentals, or by working with a mental performance coach like myself to build up your confidence, or to build up how you focus under pressure, or how you communicate with your team. Those are all the things that we can all work together with to make the best athletes that we can
Right.
make.
Build the body, build the brain.
Yeah.
You got to make that complete
So it all
athlete.
works
Yeah, got to
together.
build. I mean,
Mhm.
I mean, if you're only doing half the job, you're not really building a complete athlete. So,
Right.
what I want everyone to do is I want to encourage people to leave comments below. Put questions, put comments
Yeah.
below, and we'll definitely get back to them and answer everything that you comment or question. And
Yeah.
to me, this is a really interesting topic. I hope we can come back and cover some of these things that we didn't get a chance to cover today. But how will people get a hold of you? I mean, you've got your website, and why don't you tell everyone what that is? And we'll link that below too, but go ahead and tell everyone.
Yeah. So my website is startyourrippleeffect.com. They can also reach out to me on my Facebook page, Ripple Effect Performance. That's also my Instagram, Ripple Effect Performance, and I post pretty regularly on those two medium. So I'm always putting out like new graphics, information, like features. So feel free to pose questions to me there. And then you can send me messages through there, and then we could just get started that way. For sure.
Okay. And if somebody does want to move forward, and let's say they have an athlete, whether it's their child or whether it's themselves, they would just contact you. You'd have, I mean, what's the initial process? You do a little interview, you have a 10-minute discussion, or what do you typically do to see if there's a fit?
Yeah. So I welcome everyone and anyone. I feel like anybody who really wants to get better, I want to help you get better. If it's a parent asking for their child, I do like to talk with the parent first and just see what they think their child needs help with. And then I like the child to have a say. So let's say you're asking on behalf of your 12-year-old soccer player because you think that they need to like get a little bit more confident on the field. I'd love to help your kid. I also want to make sure that your kid is comfortable talking with me. And for anybody that's like a minor who's under 18, I make sure the parents know that they can be part of the process. They can be present. If we do like a video call, they can be in the room. They could chime in on the conversation. But I want their athletes and their kids to be comfortable as well. So if the parent really wants it, but the kid doesn't, I'm not comfortable doing it.
Right.
Because it's the kid who ultimately has to be open to talking.
It won't work. Yeah, it won't work anymore.
Yeah. So I do like to offer at least like an introductory session, especially with a youth athlete. Like, let me do like an introductory session with them. The parent can be there too on the call. And we just talk and get to know each other. Maybe we talk about you and your sport. Maybe we talk about like video games, but we just get to know each other. And my intent is to just try and make the parent and the athletes as comfortable with me as possible, because I'm not a counselor or anything like that. I'm just a coach. And they, just like any coach, they have to be willing and comfortable to work with me. So if the athlete isn't feeling it, I don't want to force it either. So I can definitely work with the parent and give the parent some strategies that they can utilize. But if the athlete's not interested, it's probably not going to go very easily, because they're not going to be as willing to listen to strategies or suggestions I might have. So I like everybody who's involved to have a say and feel comfortable with the relationship as well.
All right. Well, Jenna, I really want to thank you for taking the time out today and joining us on this call.
Sure.
It's really a fascinating topic. I think it's so important to get that mental side done. And it's, really something that doesn't happen in a normal practice. So if you're not doing it outside of your practice, it's just not going to get done. So again, thank you for coming on this call with us.
Sure.
And one more time, can you give us your contact information, your website, Instagram?
Yeah. So again, my company's name is Ripple Effect Performance, and my website is startyourrippleeffect.com. Facebook, Ripple Effect Performance. Instagram, Ripple Effect Performance. And so find me, and my name is Jenna Weinstein, so you could look me up on all the social media that way as well. Jenna Weinstein, same spelling as the Hollywood Weinsteins, but no relation to them.
Unfortunately.
In some ways.
Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking about the bank account.
Yeah, no, that
ways.
would be great. That would be great.
Yeah. The other way is, you're better off.
For sure.
You'd have to probably spend all that money to disassociate from them. So, all right. Well, again, thank you, Jenna,
so much,
and
Gary.
you have a great day, great weekend, and look forward to having you on again, because, again, for me, it's a fascinating topic. I know there's going to be more to talk about, and put your questions down below, so she'll take care of them for you.
Yeah,
all right?
thanks so much, Gary, and thank you, everyone, for listening.
All right. Bye now.